I could feel the hot breath on my neck. I could feel the soft shearing touch of the lips on my throat, and the hard dents of two sharp teeth. Now I know what you're thinking. Vampires, right? Turning into bats, flying through the night, attacking people, and drinking blood, and being a general pain in the neck. Well, it's a good thing that they're only made believe, or are they? Now, I'm not saying vampires really exist, just that the legend is based on fact, and the legend of vampires no exception. The legend of the vampire can be distributed to 4 areas: historical and medical proof, folklore, and psychology. All of these have contributed to the mystery of the undead. The Catholic Church first recognized the existence of vampires around the time of the Roman Empire. The vampires were used more as a symbol to show newly conquered pagans that cannibalism was wrong. The arguments of the church, along with historical occurrences, led most of the already deeply superstitious people of the world to believe in the existence of vampires. Vlad Tepes was perhaps one of the most famous of the human monsters who embodied the traits that we associate with vampires. Vlad was the ruler in Transylvania in the mid-1400s and was the original Count Dracula upon whom Bram Stoker's novel was partially based. Vicious and cruel, Vlad was fond of torturing and impaling his enemies on tall wooden stakes, and in fact, he is credited with the impalement of over 30,000 men, women, and children. There were others that also embodied the traits of vampires, such as Count Countess Elizabeth Bathory. In 1610, she was sealed in her room because she had been accused of killing young girls and bathing in their blood. Elias de Raff fought alongside Joan of Arc. However, he immensely enjoyed torturing, raping, and disavowing small children. As the late 1909, vampires scared reached all through the backwaters of Europe, and that year, a group of peasants burned down a castle in Catherine Mounts thought to hold a vampire. Proof of the existence of vampires was also found in the medical field. Anemia is a condition caused by a loss of red blood cells or a deficiency of iron in the blood. It would produce the same effects as supposed vampire attacks, such as weakness, paleness, and lethargy. Catalepsy, however, is an unconscious state of paralysis that can last anywhere from minutes to days. It's sometimes brought on by an extended epileptic seizure. Medical science of the time, however, would not be able to detect the lower life signs. The heart rate slows, the breathing almost stops, and for all purposes, that person is dead, which is exactly what the people of the Middle Ages thought. If that person awoke in the coffin, they would struggle and shortly suffocate. If the coffin were later dug up, there might be blood in it from the hands scraped on the lid. The body would be less decayed than one which had actually been dead at the time of burial. The body might not be in the same position as one when buried. All evidence would point to that person being a vampire. But suppose that person woke up during the funeral, awake. You would go to see a friend get buried, and right in the middle of it, he sits up. Superstitious guests panic and run off, thinking him to be some supernatural something or other. And if he escapes, by his beliefs, he will think he is a vampire. He might start acting the part. He might attack or kill animals, maybe even humans, and might even drink their blood. Stimulated by such proof, a rich folklore surrounding vampires sprung up all through the areas of Europe. Romans believed that owls could either become bats or owls, referred to as sturges. A bat's features suggested a demon face, which is exactly what the Romans thought, and the large blinking eyes and human-like feet of an owl suggested a man in bird form. And coffins in Ireland tended to rise up, so the Irish piled stones upon them and so they wouldn't fear of vampires escaping. Maybe this is some dim margin of our modern headstones. Hungary and Romania originated the idea that a stake driven through the heart of a vampire would kill it. At that time, it was generally thought that the heart could contain the soul of the body. It was generally believed that a cross could warn off a vampire. As excommunicated people, they supposedly could not tolerate the holy nature of this symbol. It was also widely accepted that plants were thorns with anti-vampire, since most animals in the wild tended to avoid plants with thorns. Perhaps some of the deepest portions of the vampire myth are those that deal with the subconscious fear in all of the vampire represents. They might represent a fierce disease, as their breath like that of rotting corpses. Like disease, vampires weaken their victims and kill over time. They might also symbolize a fierce sexuality. Vampires lure victims into their clutches with promise of untold pleasures. The mood surrounding the tale of the vampire is one of seduction and dominance. Sex is portrayed as the tool of evil, manipulated by the will of the vampire to meet its own ends. Another possible theme for the legend of the vampire is the desire and the stimulation fear of immortality. The undead offer eternal life, alluringly placing immortality within the clutches of the mortal, but that person must allow the vampire to feed upon their body, then spending an eternity half living, half dead, wallowing in evil and sin. There's much folklore surrounding the legend of the vampire. Well, most of it's pure fiction, but some portions have a logical basis. Could vampires really exist? What do you think? Before any of us discard this possibility, we must think. We must rethink to the old legends and ask ourselves, are we afraid of things that go bump in the night?